So, 3 rounds in, 2023 NRL season, the Warriors 2 from 3. Let's take a few minutes to see how the boys have been doing. Welcome back to the Warriorholic. Nice day here on a Friday, so I thought I'd take a few minutes to have a bit of a look at how the season's going so far for the mighty New Zealand Warriors, what we've seen, what we've done well, what's not so good, and what we might be able to expect over the coming months. So I'd like to start out by looking at our mighty leader, Andrew Webster there. I started out this channel on the very first episode taking a bit of a look at the Webster effect and what I've seen from him, or I saw from him coming into the pre-season, and the changes I anticipated in making. In reflection, I think, the first observations were, pretty much accurate, clear, concise, meaningful, passionate communicator, really easy to understand, nothing bullshit about the guy. He's just straight up, speaks from the heart. Nothing from that has changed over the past 5 or 6 weeks. If not, it's reinforced that, it definitely wasn't an act. That's the guy. I love the fact that he's taken a lot of time for the mainstream media, the sports media, and for the individual bloggers and content creators who support the Warriors here online. Just listening to his discussions, within the podcast, or one of the best interviews I saw was from Monty Beethan on the Once a Warrior show there on Sky. He just really opens up and gives you some really interesting insights into who he is as a man and what he's trying to achieve. I would say that one of the things I really like is the fact that he's really practical and logical in the way he approaches things. Everything he talks about is simplified, not overcomplicating the situation. I like that he talks about, hey guys, let's not put a limiter on ourselves and only go for the top 8. Let's aim for the top. Every team in the NRL should be going for that championship. But let's focus on how we can win as many games as possible, breaking that back down to what we need to train this week, what are our processes, what are the style of footy we're going to play, into the every action within the training and within the games, so things become controllable, like little micro milestones that if you can get those right, deliver the final result, which will at the end of the day become a championship, whether it's this year, next year, or 2 or 3 years down the track. I personally believe that I have not seen anyone up until now that has really given me the confidence they could potentially deliver that. I think we saw the signs from our Daniel Anderson and Ivan Clary, but unfortunately neither of those guys were given the time to actually deliver on their potential. I think that's what I really need from the club now, is to really invest, and the fans actually, is to trust in Webster. We'll go through rough times while he's at the helm. Let's trust that his long-term vision is going to be right and given the support, time and resources to deliver on it. Another great sign from me is the team he's built around him. I've heard a number of discussions or interviews with Justin Morgan and Richie Agar, 2 of his key assistants here with Stacey. We haven't seen a lot of Stacey in the media, and I don't think that's his key forte. I think he prefers to be behind the scenes. But what I've seen from the 2, Agar and Morgan, is they're very consistent in their communication, actually, very much aligned with Andrew Webster, which is a great sign for me. They accept the successes we've had, but they're quick to move on to the things we can continue to improve on. So they're not sitting back and, being proud and excited of themselves that we've had these small wins along the way. They're really much, focused on the long-term goals. That's great. Even Andrew Webster, after that first win against the Knights, acknowledged it was a great win. It was hard fought, built on the back of some great defense, but quickly acknowledged there are a lot of things that we didn't get right, even within the defense, and focusing on what we have to keep improving on to reach those long-term goals. One of these days I'd love to have a chance to interview Andrew Webster to really understand where he learned to become the leader he's become. If I could actually bottle what I try to create in leaders working with the companies I work with, doing change management and growth projects, he's got so many of the key attributes I'm trying to instill. And unfortunately, not enough leaders in this world actually have them. And I think, it's that humble, acknowledgement that you're not the one and only know-it-all guy, that you're just there to empower a larger group of people. That empathy for their needs, for the people around them, and just generally wanting to deliver for the greater good. For me, they're great things that you cannot, create easily in a leader. They're something you're generally born with, your natural values. So he's got a lot of those. So it really excites me for what he can do for the Warriors going forward. Having a look at the style of play that he's seems to be bringing in, one of our biggest weaknesses over the past few years has been our resilience on defence. We always knew it when we're put under a lot of pressure, we'd crumble, we'd let in those easy tries, and that always put us on the back foot. I think we've developed one of the most resilient, team-wide defences in the NRL at the moment. That ability, we might be missing the odd individual tackle, but that ability to cover for your mates, scramble and defend that line like your life depends on it. I think we're up there with the top 2 or 3 teams in the competition at the moment. And that's one of the key foundations of any successful competition-winning team. So that's really exciting for me. Our overall fitness has been a weakness for me since 2018. We always fall off at the back end of games, or, if we're having to defend our lines for, set after set, if we've had to play in the intense heat in the early season in Australia, it's always been a weakness. But I think this year we've shown 2 games in a row in the 30-plus degree heat that I think we at least matched, or if not outlasted, our opposition. Our fitness is as good as any team going around. The third one for me is last season we were 15th in line breaks. I felt like we were playing a really structured game of footy where it was all about completion rate, which we had one of the highest completions, but we weren't able to sort of turn it over into genuine attacking opportunities and or points, which meant we had one of the worst points for and against in the competition. This year we sit first in total line breaks and line break assists. We're not throwing around the same willy-nilly offloads that we have done in the past, that people call that Warriors ball, frantic. We've done it on a couple of occasions, but I think we're playing a really structured, direct, aggressive breed of football. But when the opportunity's there, we're able to put our guys away through those gaps through some really subtle passing, both inside and outside from both our playmakers and actually our forwards. So I think it's about a simple, practical way to approach our attack that creates these opportunities for the line breaks. So I think that's controllable and it's less reliant on luck. Frantic footy is great and exciting when it comes off, but it can also go to custard pretty quickly. We've seen a couple of silly offloads in the past couple of weeks, but very few of them. You can almost count them. We could easily count them on one hand. So for me, solid, resilient defense on the back of extreme fitness and a really simple, fun and exciting direct way to play on attack. I think that's Andrew Bull, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it really sort of continues to improve as we build those combinations and that trust. And we've still got a few weaknesses there. We've seen Andrew Webster talk about it on a number of occasions while we are scrambling well. There's still certain times we're falling out of our structure that probably the average footy player like myself doesn't notice. Being able to make those first up tackles, I think we've seen a lot more missed tackles than we would like. If you're looking at our outside forwards, a lot of them are, down into the 70s or 80% tackle efficiency rate. We're able to scramble to cover those with guys like Tamati Martin out there who's high up in the 90s. But we don't want to keep relying on scrambling, so we want to be able to increase our first up tackling percentages for me. That's one key area. I think another one is definitely our kicking game. I'm going to harp on about it. I think we saw better signs from Sean Johnson up there against the Cowboys, where he did vary his kicking game. He did get that ball right down into the corners where we were able to keep the opposition on their try line, wear them out trying to hit that ball off their own line. I'd love to see a bit more of that this week against the Bulldogs. We saw the very first kick he put in the beginning of the game was one of his floaters. We don't see enough of those big floating high bombs. I know it's not the highest percentage kick in the world, but pulling it out every now and then just to put that the back three of our opposition under uncertainty that they're not always going to get that lower end over end kick, which is pretty easy for a professional back three player to take. We haven't seen too many repeat sets of 6. Granted, it's a bit of a risk putting those kicks into the end goal there, because if they do go dead, you're on the back of a 7 tackle set off the 20 there, which can often result in loss of field position or even a try. But trying to get those repeat sets of 6 where you break the heart of the opposition. That actually reminds me of a point that Andrew Webster mentioned in his interview with Monty Beethan, that it's often seen as a negative to be, sitting on your line for 2 or 3 sets of 6, because it sucks the energy out of you, like we've had to in a few occasions. But as he said, if you can actually do that and absorb it and somehow manage to get down the other end and score a try off the back of that, within a set, it can break the heart of the opposition where they've tried to score points at you and couldn't, and then all of a sudden, given one opportunity, you do it. So, there are pluses and minuses from both sides, but I do think there is an opportunity to try and get those repeat sets of 6 there, to build the pressure at both ends, not only being resilient on our own line, but also putting repeat sets on the opposition and making them defend. I like the fact, and this is something that's happened back since the Kearney days, where we've had those big outside backs, our centres and our wingers are able to take the first 2 or 3 hit-ups of our sets, particularly when we're hitting off our own line, to give the forwards a bit of a break, particularly the middles are doing the lion's share of the defence. I think that's a really good sign that we've got those guys capable of taking those attacks, particularly Montoya, destroying guys when he's got the ball in the hand, making over 200 metres at times. So that's another good aspect for me. I love the fact that we're really playing as a team. You just see the camaraderie there. And that's one sign that we saw from the Panthers over the past 3 years when they started to hit their straps. Just the team spirit, the fun, the energy that those guys were playing with, the way they'd celebrate together when they scored a try. And I think you really start to see that from the Warriors. We're not looking at a bunch of individuals. We're not looking at guys who are disheartened or, fractions with the environment, which we saw last year, which I genuinely believe is one of the reasons Lodge left, is his frustration with people who are underperforming, and perhaps, the coaching staff weren't putting as much pressure on them, were dropping players. I think, I've heard rumours that, there were similar frustrations for Josh Curran. We're not seeing that this year. It seems like they're all playing as one and they're aligned and just enjoying their footy, which at the end of the day, mate, it's a game. Sure, it's their profession, and sure, we're paying at times to watch it, but it's just a game. You've got to enjoy your sport to get the best out of it. So I'm really, happy to see that that's something that Andrew Webster's been able to instill in the club in just a few short months, and hopefully that continues to grow as we expand next year and have the full 5 teams in the competition. In reflection, our biggest challenge at the moment, and something we really need to fix this week, is our slow starts. We're allowing opposition teams to, we saw that against the Cowboys, 2 quick tries in the first, I think it was 13 minutes. Granted, they were bouncing the ball tries, but we were letting them up on our line here to put in the pressure, to put in those attacking kicks. We need to find a way to start stronger, at least be resilient and holding the opposition out for the first 20 minutes, ideally putting some points on and taking that early lead. I think we've been awesome in coming back or maintaining, getting back and staying in the fight, but let's actually start from a positive and not let the team or the opposition get out in front of us. I'm positive that's going to be one of the real work-ons that the guys have been working on before we go into this Bulldogs game. Here's hoping they can deliver it, because we know the Bulldogs have had pretty much fast starts in all of their games. They've dropped off, which gives us that opportunity to come back, but we don't even want to give that to them. Let's get a couple of early tries on there, break their spirit, get the Mount Smart faithful, 20,000 screaming Warriors fans, to get them out of the game early on. Not keen on tight games myself. A couple of players, you can't really sort of highlight too easily players that have stood out, because I think everyone's really given 100% effort. They're all working really, really hard. You can just feel the intensity. There are a couple there that I'll mention in a moment. Perhaps we'd like to see a little bit more from them. But standouts for me, Tohu Harris. He's just taking his game to the next level. All aspects of it, just what a courageous leader. On defence, the amount of tackles, I think he's second in the overall NRL for the number of tackles made. His tackle efficiency is well over 90%. I think it's actually up about 97%. It still concerns me about him playing 80 minutes every week with that level of, contact. But hey, they know his body, and they know the science a lot better than I do. All of the guys who've come in, our new recruits, have all stood up and made a difference. Chance Nickel-Cogstead, his professionalism, his enthusiasm, his involvement, his calmness on defence, ability to lead our defensive line, not just his own defence. Big step up from Walsh. I know he's doing some amazing things on attack there at the Broncos, but I'm still happy to have Chance there at this time. He's just such a calming influence to have there. Williami, even though he's out at the moment, he's been a really solid rock there in the centre in the games he's played. Mitch Barnett, I heard an interview with Jazz and Tony Kemp there on SENZ yesterday, talking about how it's great to have that other enforcer sort of mongrel mindset, that he felt like he was alone last year and the years before, having to try and get into those confrontations and match it with the opposition or intimidate them to try and drag our team off the ground. We're on the back foot. And having Mitch Barnett there with a very similar mindset, sounds like they're both good mates. They're both aggressive. They both seem to be controlling that aggression this year. That's a real positive impact for me. Apparently he's extremely competitive, so he really brings that edge to the training. Likewise with Niokore, I feel like we could have seen more from him on the field, but again, I don't know enough about the little micro aspects of the game that an Andrew Webster will be looking at to know his true contribution off the ball. But apparently he's extremely, extremely competitive in training and really leads the way there, which is great. We don't want guys resting on their laurels, so bringing both of those two, Barnett and Niokore, in there with that real willingness to be here and fight to win is a bit of a change from getting journeymen in who are just looking for that paycheck. Dylan Walker, and Jazz on caffeine, mate, with his ability to just really spark a game, that speed and his experience. He's apparently brought nothing but positive energy to the group and some really interesting insights from a guy who's played in grand finals and the like. So, while we haven't seen him after the trials there, Metcalf, man, what an energy he brought to the game when he was playing in the halves. Yeah, hopefully he gets back soon and we find a way to get him on the field. So all of those new guys have really had positive contributions. From the existing players, for me, Egan's a standout. I'll openly admit I always questioned whether he was the guy to genuinely take the Warriors, the whole way to a premiership. He seemed a little bit one-dimensional. But again, people who know a lot more about the game than I do have always sort of rated him, and Fonzie often talks about how guys like Harry Grant look at Egan as a role model. So if you've got what's considered to be one of the top one or two hookers in the competition looking at Egan for inspiration, there's got to be more there than meets the eye. And I think we've seen that this year with our forward pack getting some roll on, but giving him some front foot ball. He's improved his passing. It's the width and crispness of his passing is really good. So he is really starting to stand out as one of the top 4 or 5 hookers in the game for me. The areas he pops up in to make those last minute tackles on scrambling on defence, popping up to score the tries. So at 24, 25 years old, I hope we keep on him on long term, because he's got another 5 years to deliver at NRL level, if not more. Sean Johnson, I've always loved Sean Johnson, at the peak of his powers, second to none on attack. But there were a lot of questions about him. Last year he was really up and down emotionally. You could see that he was struggling being away from his family. There were rumours that he was part of one of the factions that sort of were causing trouble in the group there. But it seems like, Webby's had some really come to Jesus discussions with him and sort of set in some clear expectations. And all I can say is every week we've seen incremental growth from him. Areas of the game that the fans have noticed he's slowly improved to the point against the Cowboys. I think he had one of his best games I've ever seen him in a Warriors jersey. Some of the hits he's putting on defence, his defence rates are up over 97% now. Variety of kicking game. And interesting listening to Andrew Webster on the Sean Johnson situation. He feels like Sean is really starting to trust and rely on those around him to be able to deliver on their own responsibilities, so he can focus more on his own efforts and not try to do everything for everyone. And it's freeing him up both, physically within the game, but emotionally. And hopefully that continues to grow, because we know a running, free, happy Sean Johnson's, one of the best attacking weapons you'll see in the NRL. Likewise, Tamati Martin, coming in, I wasn't 100% sure what to expect from him, because I didn't see a lot of him when he played up in North Queensland in the halves there. I wasn't sure what he was, really contributing over the first couple of rounds, because he's not really the traditional sort of running, big ball-playing 5'8" that you see. But the more you watch him, his subtleties on attack there, his hands, just to put those little, skip passes away, or those little quick touches on to put people into holes, are really outstanding. And in defence for a small guy, he's really covering a lot of holes there, and he's great on the scrambling defence. So he's been another one for me. Probably, the one a lot of people are talking about, and I've harped on about, is Bunty, mate. I love the guy, I love his energy, but I think, I just hope they can tap into that energy and the intensity he hits the line with, and find him to, find a way for him to get through that line a little bit more, make some post-contact meters, and deliver on his potential. Longest serving Warrior, in the current roster. He's no longer a freshman or a young fella in the team. He's a big, solid veteran. So hopefully he can really find his feet this season and start to become a genuine force off the bench, or when he gets to start there. So in summary, what do we take out of it? I think they've met, if not exceeded, all of our expectations, particularly for me. I said at the start of this year, I wanted to see effort, intensity. I wanted to see the players playing with the same heart that the fans have followed them with since 1995. I wanted to see guys fighting for every metre, fighting to defend their line like their hearts depended on it. I wanted to see a fit team who could compete for 80 minutes, and they've showed me all of those things so far. One thing that happens when you do that, the expectations start to rise, and I'm starting to feel I'd be disappointed if we can't transfer this to at least making the 8. A couple of solid wins against teams like the Sharks and the Storm over the next few weeks, and beating teams that we saw as our mid-level sort of rivals, and all of a sudden we've cemented that place up in the top 4, if not worst case in the top 8. So my genuine belief is we can get there. I probably will be really disappointed if we don't, but if we can continue to play with this same level of passion and heart, and I can just see the enjoyment on those guys' faces, and I can feed off that, I'll be happy, because I know this is a long-term challenge for us, not to just win one comp, but to build a dynasty like we've seen at the Panthers, because we've got one of the biggest talent pools here in New Zealand, both from rugby and rugby league, and we see that the overseas clubs come and pillage our players. Andrew Webster talks about it. He says, I want this to be a fun place where people enjoy coming to work every day, that they don't want to leave because they love being part of this environment. So when we capture those young players, they don't jump off and go overseas just because it takes a little time to get into first grade here. I want us to start recruiting and developing hard-nosed players who have a professional attitude and a willingness to win, put in the hard work, not just big, fast guys who've dominated at schoolboy level because of their natural attributes. For me, laying those foundations will be a success in 2023 now, but I'm all in, mate, and I really want to see this team win as many games as possible, cement a place in the top 8. That's all I want for Christmas. Let's go the Warriors. Looking for a really solid win against the Bulldogs this week. I'd love it to be dominant. I don't need the stress of us, fighting it out in the last 2 or 3 minutes to come back to win or to hold them out because we're within one scoring play. Let's get out ahead, pull away, so we can all sit back and enjoy a really solid win by the Warriors. First one at Mount Smart. I want to see all those people out there with those shaved heads, hopefully a few with a bit of tape around them looking like Jazz there, support him in his efforts to raise money for his friend Roman, who's not in a good state. All in with the Warriors. Let's go 2023.